Hello, everybody. Welcome to Giving to the Givers, behind the scenes of 21 charitable organizations and how they're helping to change our world. I'm Christy Corwin with Build a Better World Foundation. Build a Better World Foundation was inspired by the extraordinary lives of my grandparents, Gina and Russell Garcia. Russ was a world-renowned Hollywood composer, arranger, conductor, and together he and my grandmother Gina also did so much humanitarian work with music around the world. And the Build a Better World Foundation now, what we do is we produce concerts and events, and now this online event as well, that support the empowerment of youth and young people in the arts, as well as we support already existing nonprofit organizations. And today we have the privilege of having with us Vicki Horsfield, and she is the co-founder and executive director of Creating Opportunities for Guatemalans. And she is live with us today from Guatemala. And welcome, Vicki. We're so excited to have you with us today for this wonderful interview. And so I'd like to start out just by asking you to share, if you would share a little bit about the story behind how and why you formed this wonderful organization that's helping Guatemalans so much. And if you could just share a little bit about that story. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Christy. First of all, I want to thank you very much for including Creating Opportunities for Guatemalans in this wonderful project that you have taken on to help people know what kind of things are being done in the world to build a better world and to help people who deserve to have a leg up so that they can make a good life for themselves and for their families. The way I became involved in this, I've always had a heart for helping people in need. I used to support kids through other organizations to sponsor them to stay in school when I was still living and working in Canada. But in 2012, I came to Guatemala to go to language school to improve my Spanish. And the only reason I picked Guatemala was because the flight was cheap, and the schools that did language classes to learn Spanish provided with an individual teacher, and that was really attractive. But I didn't know anything about Guatemala. I even had to look up on the map where. But I landed here, and the next day I had this overwhelming feeling that I was home. And in the 8 weeks that I spent here going to language school, I saw and learned a lot about the extent of poverty in Guatemala. Guatemala has the highest level of poverty in Central America and the fourth highest level of extreme poverty in the world. And it was evident everywhere. And when I went back to Canada to go back to my job, it haunted me. And I just felt like it was time to do something about it. So I put in for my retirement, and I told my children I was leaving them. They were adults, they didn't need me so much anymore. And I came back to Guatemala. And when I first came back, I worked for an organization way up in the mountains in an area that had been hit really hard during the Guatemalan Civil War, which was later reclassified as a genocide by the United Nations. And then I worked for another organization. And both of those organizations did wonderful things. They sponsored students to provide them with their uniforms and their school supplies so they could stay in school. But one of the criteria they had was if students failed in school, then they cut off their sponsorship. And I argued that that was not a good tactic because these children came from poverty and you were giving them a glimmer of hope. And I felt like when these organizations cut them off because they didn't do well in school, it was like throwing them back on the garbage heap. And I argued that they went home to illiterate parents because most of their parents hadn't gone to school because their parents lived in poverty and couldn't afford to send them to school. And a lot of them didn't have electricity in their home. They didn't have a table to sit down to do the homework. And because the parents had gone to school, they didn't know to say to the kids, what have you got for homework? Plus, they couldn't help them with their homework anyway. So these kids had a lot of strikes against them, and I argued that we needed to provide them with homework support outside of school to help them to learn. And as I argued my point, I started to realize that I needed to do it myself. And one organization where I worked, I met a young Guatemalan fellow who had been sponsored as a student to stay in school. And out of the 7 siblings in his family, he's the only one who graduated from high school, and the only graduate from high school because he was provided with sponsorship support. And when I started talking about starting an organization, he said, I want to be on board because I've helped to get an education and I want to give back. So he and I founded the organization together, and we help children in a small town called San Antonio Aguascalientes, and there's lots of poverty here and lots of kids who weren't in school because their parents couldn't provide school support. So we provide them, our donors, their sponsors, provide them with their uniforms and their school supplies. And then every day they come to our after school program to do their homework under supervision and to get help. And they also get English classes and math classes, and we have a reading program, a library program. And so they are now excelling in school.
That's wonderful. That's what a magnificent story that you just resigned and said, I belong there. And that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Thank you for sharing that and for all the wonderful work that you're doing there. It's really, really wonderful to hear. And with everything that you're doing to raise awareness and funds, what would you say has been the most successful event or the most successful project or success that you've experienced since you've been there doing it?
Success as far as our students' achievements, or in being able to find support for our programs? Which do you mean?
All of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above.
It's amazing how people's hearts can be touched by telling the story of the lives that these kids lead. And often that's all I have to do is tell people what I see and what I've experienced and the struggles that people are going through. And people will say, well, I want to get on board and help. And a lot of our supporters, sponsors for our children and supporters for our program, have just come through that means by me telling them the story of what is happening here. We also have received a lot of support from Rotary. I'm a Rotary member, and I have gone and spoken to numerous Rotary clubs to tell them about our and what we're trying to do. And I'm always looking for specific support. And so many Rotary clubs have come on board and said, yes, we will support that specific program. So we have not only do we have programs for our students, but we also have vocational programs for adults. A sewing program where our wonderful volunteer has taught the moms how to sew, and now they make beautiful products. And we as volunteers, when we go out of the country and go back to the United States and Canada, always take their products and try to sell them on the market outside of Guatemala. And that's been very successful, and it's made a huge difference in these women's lives because all of them were struggling just to feed their kids, much less be able to provide them with educational support. And so now they are earning a little bit more income to be able to support their families. But the other thing that's been amazing to watch is how they've grown in self-confidence and self-esteem, because now they have a skill where they see that what they do is worthwhile and valuable. So we have Rotary supporting that program. We have had another program with the moms where we gave them an 8-week session on learning how to care for and raise laying hens. And once they graduated from that program, they were all given 5 laying hens, and now they all have eggs that they can provide to their family, so their kids are eating more protein, and they all report to me that they also have enough eggs that they've been able to sell some, and that provides them with a little more income.
I love that story. I love that story. That's like teach them to fish, right? That's like
that's right.
To fish. Yeah.
because it's, you know, it's easy, not really easy, but it's easy to give handouts. Say, here, take this. But that doesn't fix the problem long term. And the other thing is, you know, people, even people who live in poverty still have dignity and they want to be able to provide for themselves.
Sure.
And, you know, getting a handout is a relief, but it doesn't make the person feel good about themselves. So if they can learn to do something, they're the ones who are putting in the work and they are receiving compensation for the work that they have done, then they feel better about themselves and they grow as people, and they also become better models for their children too, to say, look, if you work hard, you can, you know, earn more. So that's been a great program. So those are the two main areas where our support comes from individuals who I've talked to, who our volunteers have talked to, gone back to where they're from and tell their friends in their community, and from Rotary. Rotary has been a big support to us.
That's wonderful. That's really great. And I love the story with the hens. That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you.
I get free range eggs. I have a great source to get my own free range eggs.
Oh, that's so nice. So now the next question, what has been some of the biggest challenges or struggles that you have faced since you began this nonprofit charitable organization? What would you say has been some of the struggles, challenges that you've had to deal with?
Well, there are a few. One of them, for me personally and emotionally, is going into our students' homes and seeing how they live. And not because they choose to live that way, but that's all they have available. So many of our kids live in homes where there's dirt floors and corrugated metal walls. And some of them, when we first met them, they had, you know, plastic sheeting for their walls because that's all they had. And we've had families who have like one, what's the faucet? And that's the faucet where they get water to wash their clothes, to wash their dishes, to bathe. You know, they take a bucket and they go behind a bush and that's where they wash. And there have been times when I've walked away from families' homes because I couldn't believe how they are able to continue living and continue fighting and working hard when they live in those kind of conditions. So that's been one reason. Another challenge, and I want to say to that Rotary has helped a lot in that way. They've provided grants to help improve our families' homes. So we've poured a lot of cement floors, we've put in showers, we've put in wash stands so they have a place to do their laundry and do their dishes. We've Rotary has provided funds to fix their roofs so they're not leaking, and to be able to put in cement walls and substantiate their living so it's not such a struggle.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. I'm really glad to hear that. And that kind of, it sort of branched out that way, right? Like that wasn't your initial way of support. It was mostly toward the schools and things, right? That you were in the student.
Right.
So this is so wonderful. You see, that's like the beauty of, you know, being able to expand and develop in ways that you didn't realize, you know, that would be an opportunity there. And that's really huge, because the environment is so important to be able to sustain and to be able to have an environment, because our really most important concern is our shelter and our, you know, having a home is like, if you don't have that, that has to be your first priority, you know. And so it's wonderful that you've been able to help and get the Rotary and organizations like that to help. That's wonderful to hear. What would you say would be part of what we're doing here with this online virtual show is we see it as an opportunity to unite 21 different organizations. And, you know, the work is so overwhelming for every organization just to sustain itself, and the amount of work involved usually for executive directors and founders and We are so excited about this opportunity of uniting and bridging together so many wonderful organizations doing so many things. Do you have any thoughts about, as we're moving into the future and continuing on, do you see any ways in which um, organizations can unite together to do good in the world and to share resources? And do you have any thoughts about different ways that we might be able to do that?
Well, I think that's a wonderful concept. I'm going to back up a little bit. Before William, my co-founder, and I founded this organization, we contacted everybody we could contact in Guatemala to ask if they would meet with us and share information with us, because we were embarking on something we really didn't know what we were doing. And so we just said, can we pick your brain and tell us what we need to know? And it was wonderful because people shared all kinds of information with us about problems they had encountered and how they solved them, and how to head off problems. And so that really helped us to be able to launch our organization. There's also a small organization that focuses on sustainability in a couple of villages away from us. And the woman who is the director of that program, once a year, calls all of us who are in this small geographical area to meet, to share and connect. And the purpose of that is, if we need some information and we don't know how to get it, or we have a problem that one of our family members has, but we're not able to solve it ourselves, then we can share information and find out where to go to get that kind of help. And that's been really useful for us, because another thing that I address to the moms here is what they're doing for birth control, because poverty in the world is generally with single moms where the father has either died or abandoned the family, and the mom is left with many children, and she didn't ever have an education, and so she doesn't have any skills or abilities to be able to earn enough money to support her kids. So there's a wonderful organization that's just in a town not far from us that focuses on family planning, reproductive health. And so we've been able to connect with them and take our moms to go and get birth control or some other method to organize or plan the number of children they have. And so working together is really the only way to go, because like you said, every one of us who are in this industry, so to speak, can get overwhelmed at times because the problems are so extensive. Our focus is on education, and it's fine to be able to provide the kids with their uniform and with the notebooks and pens and pencils they need to go to school. But like you said, if they're living in a damp, unsafe house,
Right.
they can't function very well. They often get sick. And that affects their health. If they're not getting enough to eat, how can they concentrate and focus on school? So we've initiated a nutrition education program. So we're teaching the moms how to incorporate more nutrition into the diet they provide to their families. But we also provide a nutritional snack every day with the kids, so that we know they're at least getting, something once a day. And so, you can have your focus in one area, but there are so many other areas that affect what you're trying to do. If the mom has 12 kids, she's not going to be able to provide what that one child needs to be able to carry out his education well. So having other organizations that you're connected to, where you can find resources for help or direction or guidance, is really important.
Well, it's wonderful. It sounds like you have a nice network of a couple of other organizations where you are actually joining together to help support one another. That's really wonderful to hear. I'm so glad to hear that, because we're stronger in numbers when we do things together. We become stronger and we can really accomplish more. So I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing that. So you were providing a free gift for everybody. So everybody's going to want to make sure to click on the link below to receive the free gift. Would you like to share just a little bit about what the free gift is? And
the free gift is a wonderful video that a Rotary member made. She said, send me a whole bunch of information and send me pictures and videos. And I didn't know what she was going to do, but that was what she put together. And so it really shows all of the programs that we have and the activities that the kids are engaged in our program and the learning that goes on here. And so I would be really excited if people look at it so they can feel like they're right here with us, walking through our facility and watching the kids in the program in action.
So definitely you're going to want to click on that URL link below so that you're able to see and experience some of the things that they're doing there with creating opportunities for Guatemalans in Guatemala. And also stay tuned for more information about projects that the Build a Better World Foundation will be doing for next year. And Vicki, we have a few more minutes if you want. Is there anything at all that you would like to just share that you didn't already talk about? Anything about what you're doing there, or anything about anything that you'd like to share? We've got about 3 minutes.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say thank you to people who have a heart to give and to serve and to help other people, because I truly believe that that's what we're here on the earth for, is to share with other people and give what we can, because when we give, we get so much more back. And the families who are involved in our program, they are so grateful for the support that people give them. Here are strangers who they never knew and will never have an opportunity to meet, who reach out and say, I can help you with that. And they are very grateful for what's being provided to them. And so we can change the world. We can make the world a better place if we share what we have. It might be time, it might be energy, it might be knowledge, it might be funds. And, you know, we can change the world. You know, we don't have to look, say, step up and
Repeat that last sentence, because it kind of, the sound.
got lost.
Yeah.
Okay. I said we all have something to give. It might be our time, it might be our energy, it might be our knowledge, sharing knowledge to, you know, help people in need. And of course, funds are necessary also. And so all of us have something that we can give in order to make this world a better place. It seems like an overwhelming challenge, but you know, if we each do what we can do, we can make a big difference.
That's right. Okay, well, thank you so much, Vicki, for sharing this time with us today and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and all the wonderful things that you're doing there in Guatemala. And it's so magnificent to see people in different parts of the world doing wonderful things, you know, with all of the not so wonderful things that are happening in the world today. Some of the really beautiful aspects that I've been able to experience through these interviews is that, wow, there really is, and there really are so many wonderful organizations and wonderful people doing so many wonderful things in creating a new world. So thank you so much for being with us here today and for all the work that you're doing there.
Well, thank you to you for including us, and thank you for this time also. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.